Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magazine Centre. Today I'm doing the Astrology Report for the week commencing the 16th of May, outlining some of the key transits and aspects taking place this week and what they mean for us. But before I do that, I just want to clarify, as I always do, that the astrology itself, it doesn't control us in any way, shape or form. It's just a way of us understanding what the energies around us are doing, how they're interacting, what kinds of themes they highlight to us and what spiritual lessons are there for us to be learning at this point. But they don't in and of themselves control us, they're just influences, and if we understand what the energies are doing, where the flow is going, we can then make sure we're operating in a more conscious way in response to the energies around us. Now in terms of the actual aspects this week, I'll start off with the moon as usual. So we begin with the moon in Gemini. This is a time for things like communication, dealing with interactions and potentially working on our listening skills and our ability to express ideas and share ideas with one another. Then on Thursday the moon will move into Cancer, so this is more a time of spend time in the home if possible, but it's also feeling our emotions, getting in touch with them and giving them space to flow rather than trying to repress them, because by feeling our emotions we understand ourselves better. And this then enables us to do the next stage when the moon moves into Leo on Sunday, where we're expressing ourselves authentically. We have a better idea of who we are. We try and express our authentic selves, embrace our creative self-expression, and encourage one another to share that emotional warmth and creativity with one another. Before on Tuesday, the moon will move into Virgo, and this will be time for us to work on the day-to-day practicalities and focus on things that will improve ourselves and improve our mental and physical health. In terms of the rest of the aspects this week, we have four astrological bodies moving signs. The first one being Mars moving out of Capricorn and into Aquarius. This marks a change from focusing on focusing on long-term projects and things that require a lot of structure to focusing on a more humanitarian bent to things. It's rather than looking at things purely from a personal perspective, it's understanding how we're part of a bigger picture, understanding who we are in the wider frame of things, and understanding how our actions interact or affect the people around us, so that we can then make sure that our actions are driven by a more humanitarian and more altruistic motive rather than just for self-gain. Then on the same day, Mars will form an exact square with Uranus. I went into some detail last week, but I'll cover it again quickly. Mars and Uranus square one another Mars is all about our actions and desires, and Uranus being the ruler of Aquarius, where Mars has just entered. Uranus is about that wider collective. It's about the collective consciousness. It's waking us up out of the personal consciousness, if you like, and making us realise that we're a part of something far bigger than ourselves. We're not just isolated units. We're all interconnected, whether we like it or not. And therefore, what we do for ourselves impacts people around us as well. And if we work on raising our consciousness, it naturally benefits the wider collective conscious. But Uranus is also about that individuation. It's separating out from the collective unconscious, so we have a clearer idea of who we are. And once we have a better idea of who we are, it's then sharing our wisdom or sharing our gifts with the wider community. But with this square between Uranus and Mars, we could be looking at a conflict between what we feel we need to do at a collective level, how we should be working in a humanitarian way, versus how we may feel a desire to just do things for ourselves, or just focus purely on ourselves and look at what we're earning or what resources we have. But if we bring the two together in a healthy way, it's about developing the deeper levels of our own resources, with Uranus being in Taurus, and then using that with our actions or desires. It's taking action in a way that's beneficial for the wider whole, and will also action that's consistent, steady, and will develop more sustainable resources. Because with Uranus moving into Taurus very recently, this is a time where we need to be looking at our value systems and changing them. But we need to make sure that with this square between Mars and Uranus, that we're not pursuing things in an egotistic way. We're not trying to rebel or stand out, like look at us, we're more important than other people. We need to maintain a degree of humility here and make sure that what we're doing is right for ourselves, but also right for the wider community. And then sharing our gifts in an altruistic spirit rather than looking at personal gain all the time. Now, the next change that we'll be expecting, or experiencing rather, is Venus moves into Cancer on Saturday. So she's been in Gemini recently, and this has been a time where, in terms of relationships, we may have wanted feeling kind of freedom, or a lot of communication and a lot of networking, so sharing ideas, engaging with people on a more mental level. But now with Venus moving into Cancer, it's a more homely sign. It's about that connecting through emotions rather than at a mental level, and it's making sure that the relationships we have with one another fulfill our emotional needs, but also fulfill the other person. So it's mutually beneficial, it's mutually healing, and it's mutually supportive, so both parties have their feelings respected, and it's one where nurturing is a core trait of the relationship. Both parties are nurtured in a healthy way without either smothering or becoming cold. It's about that connecting with one another at an emotional level and that desire for emotional security in relationships. Now obviously true emotional security can only be cultivated within ourselves. We can't expect another person to give us that, but Venus in Cancer is a time for us to work on developing that emotional security within ourselves rather than expecting other people to do it. And if we're all doing this and bring that into our relationships with one another, then relationships will naturally improve anyway. The next change is going to be the Sun changing to Gemini on the 21st. So on Sunday, it's Monday, sorry, the Sun moves into Gemini, and this marks a change from the past month where we've been focusing on getting grounded. I've taken small, steady actions necessary to keep the goals going. Also making sure we spend time in natural environments where possible, so that we're grounded and we more easily connect with the organic cycles of life. Now with the Sun moving into Gemini, Gemini is all about perception. With Gemini, we generally look at it from point of view of communication and how we think about things, or how we look at data, but ultimately all of this relies on our perceptions and our personal beliefs, because the things that, whatever beliefs we hold personally, affects our perceptions. They can cloud our way of seeing things and blind us to certain things that are right in front of us. So with the Sun moving into Gemini, a key part of this period is going to be all about communication, but conscious communication. I'm not just talking about idle chit chat or anything like that. I'm talking about the sharing of ideas and helping each other to understand where do we have blinkers, where do we have a distorted view of reality because of our conditioning, and where do other people see the same area very clearly, and vice versa, because we all see certain things in a very clear and objective way, other things are very distorted due to our personal belief systems and personal thought patterns. So by communicating our truths without trying to convert one another to a certain way of thinking, and without just blindly accepting what other people say, it's about being skeptical to some extent, but being prepared to listen, so we don't just blindly accept what other people say, but likewise we're not arrogant or dismissive or trying to convert people to our way of thinking. We understand that our perception is distorted as well, so if we want to clear these distortions so we see the world as it is, then we need to be prepared to share our truths and listen to what other people's truths are without feeling threatened by it, or without dismissing it before we've even heard it. Because the end goal of Gemini in some respects is to learn to live in the here and now. Because with Gemini being an air sign, it's a very mental kind of sign, and the only place we can really experience the truth or see things unaffected by our beliefs as such is when we're in the present moment. So we're not thinking at all. The mind becomes calm and clear, and we then see things like looking through a clear window rather than once full of distortions and dirty. It's clearing our perceptions, cleaning our windows, if you like, so we see the world as it is rather than how we think it is. And the last change is going to be Pallas Athena moving into Cancer on the 22nd. Pallas Athena in Cancer is all about that emotional connection. It's about healing in an emotional kind of way, and also in terms of wisdom, it's about the wisdom of empathy. It's that emotionally connecting with one another and the need to understand what each one of us is going through, understand each other rather than just blindly judging one another, and trying to understand how can we better support one another, how can we empathise with one another so we understand what each person's going through, and then help each other in a nurturing way so that we can heal ourselves in that way. Because Cancers are only homely signs. It can be nurturing or healing one another in a very homely or domestic kind of way, like through providing food with one another, providing shelter if need be, providing emotional warmth. So with the Pallas Athena in Cancer, this is a time for looking to connect with one another emotionally and see what feels like the right thing to do rather than thinking about it. So how can we feel what's going on, how can we feel what kind of help is needed, and then provide that help and provide that empathy and support that's needed. So all in all, this is a week of a lot of change. We have 2 planets moving into air and 2 moving into water, but overall this is a week of we need to allow these changes to take place, but observe what changes we experience to begin with, because quite often when the planet first enters a new sign, we often experience a more shadow manifestation of that sign, just because that's how the collective has been conditioned over a period of time. So when the planets first move into these signs, it's important that we observe ourselves carefully, observe how we respond in certain situations, and then make the necessary changes to how we deal with things in order to bring about a more empowered way of responding to things. And so the more we take that step back and become more objective, and the more we focus on nurturing ourselves so that we're not relying on other people to give us that nurturing, we can then achieve a much healthier balance within our relationships. And by learning to be more open-minded and open to the idea that we may not know everything, or the way we understand things may be a bit distorted and it needs to be modified through communication with people who have a clearer idea in that particular area, we can achieve a much more accurate understanding of the world around us, and we can learn to be in the present moment, so we're operating from awareness rather than constant thinking. So I hope that's a useful guide for the week. May it bring you many blessings and much growth. Take care and be blessed.